Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to our webinar on application portfolio management, starting your journey. All right, we have our safe harbor slide. Just there may be some forward-looking statements in this particular webinar. So today's session is part of the Live on ServiceNow, a curated event series to connect you with ServiceNow experts and peers that can help you deploy your products and achieve value faster. And we hope you'll join us again on another webinar or 360 Exchange. You'll be able to see the schedule by scanning the QR code or using the link in the chat. So this QR code, you can scan it now, or there will be a link available in the chat that you can access to sign up for future webinars and our 360 exchanges. All right, just a few housekeeping items. So we have saved time at the end of this webinar for Q&A, but we ask that you please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen along the way. This presentation will be recorded and shared on the ServiceNow community, so you will have access to it later if you need to drop early, or if you have a colleague you'd like to share it with. We strongly encourage that. And then after the event, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey, and we really appreciate your feedback on these. All right, just a couple brief introductions. We have Mark Casteau, who's a Principal Product Success Manager with ServiceNow in our SPM. Hi, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
And I am Rob Erickson, also a Principal Product Success Manager in SPM. All right, we've got some objectives here for today. So after today's workshop, it's our hope that you'll have knowledge and material to establish a minimum viable application portfolio practice, or we'll all sometimes refer to it as an MVP. So this will be three main areas. What is application portfolio management? Next, how can I build an MVP application portfolio management practice? And finally, we'll go through a roadmap of application portfolio management maturity and future success. And here is our agenda. And looks like someone raised their hand. At this point, if you could use the Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll have folks that'll be monitoring to try to answer those. All right. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to go over a welcome and overview of APM, talk about the Common Services Data Model, or CSDM, and APM, how you can realize early value with APM, and then some specific areas around that of setting up APM and building an inventory, going through the EA workspace, measuring the inventory in simple rationalization, capabilities and demand, road mapping to mature your APM practice, and then we'll have a Q&A portion. All right, so next what we'd like to do is share a poll and get some feedback from you. So Sean, can kick off the poll. All right. So we'll leave that up for about a minute or so. Right, so this is around just whether your company currently has an application portfolio management practice in place. All right, we're going to leave that up for about 20 more seconds. All right, so from what I'm seeing with the poll results, we have majority of you, about 55% are just beginning, and then we have about 38% that are using ServiceNow APM. So, share results. All right, so thanks very much for answering that. Then we have one more poll question. And this is around, if you do have an application portfolio practice, how mature would you say you are? So we've got just beginning or no maturity, low maturity, just a very little process and limited data, some maturity where you have most but not all applications are managed and you have some processes in place and some maintenance, or high maturity where you have strong process and your data is integrated into your organizational processes. All right, just give you a few more seconds for that particular poll. Okay, and in this particular poll, share the results. See, it's pretty evenly balanced between just beginning, low maturity, and some maturity. Very few at high maturity, and that's, I think, pretty much appropriate for this particular workshop, because I think we're going to be going in really starting your APM journey. All right, thanks very much for all the participation in the poll. All right, so now I'm going to turn things over to Mark Kesto to talk a little bit about APM and CSDM.
Thanks, Rob. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We want to start off and just give you a foundation of what is APM, just in case you're not familiar, and also so that we're all kind of thinking from the same page. As we mentioned, we want to help you, guide you with this program to help you establish a minimum viable starting APM program. So APM isn't new. It came about in the 60s when IBM and the other mainframe manufacturers were hosting mainframes for these companies. They were building applications, even though they didn't call them that at the time. They were applications. They had to keep track of them. It's been growing since. With Y2K, those that were around in the 90s and the imminence of the change to the new millennium, there was a big push to understand, what do we have? Who owns what we have? What do we need to do? Will it survive Y2K? Does it have 2-digit years or does it have 4-digit years? Those kinds of things had to be addressed. And so EA really, enterprise architecture, and specifically the tool that enterprise architecture uses, application portfolio, really started to grow. In the early days, it was on static drawings. Even before we had Visio, people were drawing boxes and lines and the sort, and they were storing things in spreadsheets. As the 90s evolved, they began to move into actual applications. And then late 90s, early 2000s, we saw actual beginnings of SaaS available information. Even though SaaS was not popular at that time, it was all beginning. Let's put it in a database is what people were thinking, and how it started to evolve. ServiceNow, we have a take on APM unlike any other, because we merge APM in with operations, ITOM, ITSM, and asset management. We tie all of these things together. Also, integrated risk management, vulnerability. We have the ability to bring so many different functionalities together. So it's more than that list of applications and some architectural drawings. We are putting together a system where you can have full visibility and management capabilities. Next, if you would, Rob. So APM, just kind of an overview. What is it? Yeah, at the core, it's that list of your enterprise systems, what we call business applications. And you're managing that list. There needs to be ownership. It's true of any record in ServiceNow. Somebody needs to own it, manage it, take care of it, especially your business applications. We align to the business through business capabilities. We align technologies. We're not going to focus on that aspect so much today. It's part of the roadmap, but we do have other sessions coming for that. And then there's information architecture, our information portfolio. This gives us a broad picture of what these enterprise systems are doing, where are the risks due to technologies, and where are the architectures. So this becomes a tool that is very powerful for use in managing these systems and understanding what's going on in your enterprise. Next, please. So at the core of it, as we said, we got the applications. We have technology alignment and technology standards, two facets of technology management. Business alignment, we do that through our business capabilities. We'll talk a little more about them. Capabilities are what your company does. And then information is, what information are these systems using? And then finally, We have CSDM. This is where we tie APM, and this is the real trick of APM. We tie APM into everything else. We have that visibility into operations and services. How do these things really manifest and run? What services are they supporting and helping to deliver? How can we evaluate from low-level vulnerabilities identified in the data center that rolls up to these enterprise systems so that the owners of these systems, business and IT owners, as well as executive management, can understand what's going on? We're painting a picture of not just the trees, we're painting the forest with this thing. Next, please. Here's a list of capabilities that are part of enterprise or are part of the application portfolio management. You see at the bottom, enterprise architecture workspace. That's the new does all UI. All of our functionality has been moving there, or at least most of it. But the key individual functionalities, of course, the app inventory, tech portfolio management, tech reference model, that's that tech management, data certification, diagramming artifacts, APIs and integration management, app rationalization. We're going to talk about that one a lot today. Business capability management. These are all functionalities. And guess what? We incorporate all kinds of functionality from the platform, including at some point, probably this year, we're going to start to see artificial intelligence. That's something everybody is asking about and interested in. We're going to start seeing features that use AI. But there's other things, reports, workflows, all kinds of platform capabilities that are incorporated into this. Next, please. So what this looks like, all of these different functionalities that are full-on programs within ServiceNow, APM incorporates it. IT asset management, ITAM. ITOM, the operation, CMDB, discovery, service mapping, GRC, integrated risk, audits, controls, PPM. This is how we take action. We can see the investments and the work that's ongoing. ITSM, understanding how incidents, problems, changes, outages, all of these things are measured and affect that application. And then integrations. We have integrations for total cost of ownership now. We have Lucidchart to do diagramming. We have PowerPoint. Later this year, we're going to see our own diagramming coming forward. Next, please. So a picture of how this looks is we have that application portfolio management. And of course, first thing is just to build the inventory. And we're going to talk about how you go about that today. We'll give you some tools to help you with it. Next, we have capabilities, capability alignment. It's nice, you've got an application, but what does it really do for the business? We want to understand that. And then future in your roadmap is technology alignment and managing technical risk. And then everything else. This is what comes through that CSDM channel of ITOM, ITAM, ITSM, SecOps, risk. All of them are involved. And then finally, taking action and aligning the insights that you evaluate your inventory, you make decisions to fix things, upgrade things, remove things, retire things. All of these decisions feed into a single demand pipeline aligned to goals and strategies of the enterprise, and things happen. And then it all circles back again. Next, please. So at the foundation of this, you can't talk about APM. You can't start your APM without a little bit of CSDM understanding, Common Service Data Model. I want to talk about it real quick. Highlighted in red are the key elements that APM cares about. Now, it cares about everything because everything gets involved. But for today's conversation, let's keep it simple. We have the design domain of Common Service Data Model. That's business application, business capability, information object, And then down in managed technical services, down in that operations of the orange, I just tell people, remember orange, we have the application service. That represents a deployment of a system. It's what ties the CMDB services and all of the things happening in operations, ITSM. That's what ties it together back into our application inventory, the business applications. A couple of examples. Now, first, let's talk about our definitions. These are three key definitions. The word applications, kind of terrible. You say application, it means many different things to many people. What we want to do is be clear about what we're saying. An application, singular, is discoverable. Discovery will find it. It'll find a database, an application server, middleware, all of these kinds of things are discoverable, and it's bits and bytes installed on a server, a container, a virtual server, a web server, or even platform as a service. It's installed, it's discoverable, it's a single element doing some technical function as a part of a bigger whole, which is on the right side, our application service. That's a deployment of this system. That deployment might be production or development, UAT, or it might be a West Coast deployment and an East Coast deployment. The variations on where a deployment is and what environment, those are all the things. The point is it's an individual deployment. It's built of applications singular, and it rolls up to its highest level representative, which is the business application. Business application is not an operational CI. You don't put it on an incident, although incidents can be by the CSDM pathways related to it, and we can discover that. We actually use that. We'll talk about that in another workshop someday. But the point is business application is abstract. App service is logical. It represents a deployment. Application, that's physical. You can shut it off, you can delete it, you can remove it. It's part of the application. So next, please. Let's look at a small example, extremely simplistic. We have a business capability, email collaboration. We have a business application that provides that called Exchange. And I have a deployment of Exchange in production, and it's got an application, which is Exchange V11, and it's running on a Windows server. I also have a deployment of SQL Server out there running on another Windows server that supports that application service. This is as simple a model as you can get. It doesn't include technical services, business services. This is the core APM CSDM model. Business application is tied to operations, everything in orange, by that consumes line. And that is very important because so much of our functionality rolls up. So as you begin with your APM journey, this is the thing, that application, business application service, perhaps I would say come first. They're a pair. And as we said, application service, they represent an individual deployment. So you got environments, et cetera, but at least you want to capture the prod ones. So next, we've got one more example for you. This is SaaS. What about SaaS? So it doesn't have hardware. There's no servers or anything. What do you do with SaaS? Well, SaaS still has an application service representation. Here we're modeling Workday. It's a business application. We have Workday production here, and we're showing technical service offering. That represents the teams that manage, support, and deliver Workday to the organization. And then on the right-hand side, we see all of these other applications that consume information out of Workday. It's our source of record for our employee. That's that golden list of employees and the organizational hierarchy, the HR hierarchy. That's fed into all kinds of things, and they consume it. So Very simple model, but it gives you the concept of what do you do about SaaS. So there's lots of material on CSDM. We invite you to consume it, take your time, but it is critical to have this basic understanding. Rob, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that great intro on APM and CSDM. So as we continue with this webinar, we're going to create a scenario where I'm going to be taking on the role of an enterprise architect who's starting his journey with ServiceNow APM. And Mark is going to be the APM expert who will be guiding me along the path.
Sounds good, Rob.
So, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Rob. How are you today?
Honestly, I'm a little bit stressed out.
So, what's up? What's
Well,
going on?
so my leadership is telling me that we're spending way too much on our applications and we need to cut back to save costs. But at the same time, I have users telling me that we need more applications to provide all the capabilities we need.
Yep. So, kind of cross purposes and confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, so the good news is that we recently purchased ServiceNow Application Portfolio Management, but I'm really not sure where we should start. I've watched a bunch of videos and read the ServiceNow doc site, and I could really use some guidance around where I can get value from my APM deployment right away.
I think we can help you. What are your pain points?
Well,
Do you document it?
yeah, coincidentally, I have a slide put together with those. So we're currently hosting our inventory of applications in this massive spreadsheet, but it is an absolute mess. Multiple users have access, and we really don't have a standard for what we should be tracking. Second, we don't really have a way to identify which of our applications are providing value and which are not. So it seems like the person with the loudest voice decides what apps we invest in as opposed to which are providing the most value. Third, this lack of visibility in how the apps are performing has made it really difficult for me to be able to identify what we should retire versus what we should replatform versus what we should invest in. Basically, I can't really do any app rationalization. And then finally, we don't have a way to map these applications to what they're actually doing for the business. For example, what capabilities they provide. So is there anything you can do to help me, Mark?
Yeah, I think I can. This is the premise of our presentation today. For yourself and your team and our friends that have joined us, we want to propose here's a way to get big value early on with APM. There's all kinds of value to achieve all across the journey, but it takes time. It's not, as I put it to some people, it's a team sport. Everybody in the company gets involved at some point and in some way. But what we propose today is it starts with establishing that source of record for your enterprise system, your business applications. You need some degree of classification. What does it do? Well, it's a BI tool. It's an HR tool. It's general ledger, something like you need that. That's categorization. And then you need ownership. You need somebody you can reach out to and say, hey, tell me more about this. Hey, you've got a problem. All of those things. That in and of itself, having a dedicated source of record is highly valuable just right then and there, especially if you make sure that part of this is establish the process to make sure that it stays fresh, that it's managed. You've got to have ownership of those records. Next, use EA Workspace to establish visibility. It's designed to help you with portfolio health, just a view of the portfolio and various reports. We're going to demonstrate it, and most of all, we're going to demonstrate how you can start to get some return on your investment with rationalization. And then finally, establish a capability model. Your capability model doesn't have to be perfect to begin with, just enough so that you understand what it does for the business. And there's a key thing here. What something does for a business capability doesn't necessarily speak to what it does technically. A BI tool can support in healthcare, for example, managing patient records. Yet a BI tool is a generic tool, but if it's supporting that capability, you want to understand that. You want to understand how risk from the application portfolio can roll up. That's part of why we separate the concept of business capability from technical capability. We'll talk a little more about that later. But this gives us a foundation for what we feel is a really strong value statement.
All right, thanks, Mark. So how do we get started?
So let's take a look at, just to dive a little bit deeper into this. So we kind of have just a series of steps that we've documented here. And next slide. We're going to guide you in how you can establish your application inventory. Like we said, we want ownership. Any other attributes that you have that you can capture easily. You don't want to waste a whole lot of time trying to get everything. Just get a few things and make sure that you understand what it does technically, who owns it, and a description to be more descriptive beyond just the category. That way you can actually work with these things. We can use the categories for simple rationalization. Assessing it. Start your assessments. Part of improving anything is measuring it. So we've got some toolkit examples for you. And we're actually going to show you today how to configure assessments, run them, generate scoring. Rationalization. We're going to show you how to use the EA workspace to rationalize. And then take action. So in APM, taking action means create a demand. You may not be using ServiceNow SPM, Strategic Portfolio Management. If you are, that's great. It feeds right into it. But if you are not, you still have demand available as a part of your APM subscription. It's a way to define a business case. The processes that you establish internally can take those business cases and handle them appropriately for your company. Next. So here's some steps, just outlining. It's a very short example, but the approach is what we discussed. Establish that inventory. You might go vertical and get just your most important applications. You might go horizontal and just get 5 or 6 attributes on everything you can find. Just understand you don't have to get everything before you can begin. You can get a subset, start to work with it, and grow your program. Categorize them, define what they do, and then define business value and technical risk so that we can start to do simple rationalization. We have a set of steps there. I'm not going to read it all to you. You guys can read this. This is all going to be available for you afterwards. But the steps are basically decide your attributes, get your information imported, build that inventory, start managing the inventory, start those processes early, especially processes for review and certification to make sure it stays fresh. What is the value? Number one, single source of record of the inventory. That's useful for everybody in the company, at least in IT, if not beyond. Ability for business IT to understand what's out there, who owns it, who's running it. It's a foundation for strategic planning. It's also a foundation for technical function. What are these things doing? Again, basic rationalization can begin. It becomes a value add for IT operations. They just simply understand better what it is. This server, who's it belong to? Oh, it belongs to this crown jewel application. This is not just any server. We need to worry about it. There are other things we can begin to express the demands. You can understand what work is happening across the whole portfolio, across the whole company. That in and of itself, we believe has value. Next. So as to help you with this, we built APM Toolkit. It's up on the community. We'll be adding more to it. We've added some to it. We're going to add more to it as time goes on. Videos are kind of hard. You're going to see some videos today, but they're rather large, so we don't have places to put them just yet. But you're going to see a few up there, and we're going to give you templates. We give you step-by-step PDFs. So it makes your job, especially we're wanting to help the customers out there. You're just getting started. and you're two people. I've met dozens and dozens of customers like that. You've been asked to build out APM. You're all by yourself, and you're trying to manage it for this whole company. It's pretty daunting. So we want to give you a place to start, and want to give you some simple tools to help get you going. So, how do you begin? First thing you got to do is set it up. So, setting up APM, and we're going to demonstrate this in a video. You install the plugin, you create at least one group. We're going to demonstrate just one group. But remember, we're shooting for a minimum viable. And then you import your inventory and you start to work with it. So,
and it's typically your system admin that's going to be doing some of these activities, not the enterprise architect, right?
exactly. You're going to have to get your admin. Honestly, anything you do in ServiceNow, you want to work with your admins. Make sure they are aware. Make sure that you're working with them, and that you're doing things according to their policies. So we're going to show you a video, just short video on setting this up.
All right, you ready to start?
Yep. So you log in. As we said, you want to log in as an admin and go to plugins. Technically, it's applications now, but I'm a little old school. I've been here for a while, so I still call it plugins. So we're in the application manager. You look for application portfolio management, and you'll see couple of family plugins. One, application portfolio management. That's it. There's actually a convenience one that you're going to drop down just a little bit, and you'll see application portfolio. It installs app portfolio and the ATF test, so it gives you a more complete installation. You could do the other one either way. If you're going to load demo data, don't do it in prod. But in dev, it's a great thing to do. So in here, we're pretending we're in dev. And so you load the demo data. It helps you to understand how the system works. You've got examples. Can't beat a good example. And now it's time to go get a cup of coffee because this thing runs for a while. Not for real here. We've cut out the waiting, but it takes a few minutes for it to install. Once it's installed, next, we want to go and we're going to look for enterprise architecture workspace. So you close the installation dialog, go back to App Manager, and just type in enterprise architecture. You'll see it's a store application. That's kind of important. We update EA Workspace 4 times a year rather than just twice a year. So there's always something new coming with EA Workspace right now. And you install it. It should install a little quicker. Once it's installed, now what we need to do is set up so that we can have people start to use it. So the way you do this is we're going to assign a role that comes with APM called APM Analyst. And the way you want to manage roles assigned to people is you want to create a group, put the role on a group, and then put people in the group. That's the prescribed way of doing this in ServiceNow for anything. So we're going to create a group here called APM Analyst. You can add a manager to it, email if it makes sense. There's some other possibilities, but simple enough. Just create the group, save it. We're going to add the role, and in the roles, we want to search for SN underscore APM. You'll see there's all the roles. We just pick analyst. It includes all of those other roles, so that's all you need is just that one. So now we've assigned the role. We want to put some people in the group, which will in turn will give them the privileges so that they can start working with APM. So we put a couple people in it, update it, and we're in business.
All right, I'll make sure my system admin gets me into that group in our instance.
Okay. So now we've set up APM. We're ready to load the business applications. So we're going to demonstrate how to use the simple list view import capability. There's also a platform capability called import sets. In either case, you're probably going to want to have admin privilege to do this. And if not, you certainly have to work with your admin. They have to give you the permissions to be able to do this. Once again, work with your system admins to do this kind of import. But this is just a simple way at it. Rob, you can go ahead and launch. So as part of the toolkit and what we mentioned before is here we're going to use a spreadsheet. So we create a spreadsheet that has a set of attributes. We're just doing these 6 attributes: name, description, category, IT owner, business owner, and status. And so here we can go to the import, see from the list. One of the things I can do is I can create a Excel template. And I'm using that spreadsheet that I created, so it's already ready to go, but I could have created one. So I've got my Excel template, I've got it populated, and I select it, I click upload, and we wait for it to upload. And then we're going to preview the imported data. We see that we've got records. And then we say, okay, complete the import, and it's going to create those records. So this is a very simple way to, what it does under the hood is build an import set and import for you. It's a simple way to do it. Again, import sets are much better, but they require more of a developer. So here we see we have our applications imported. We're now ready to start working with them. So over to you, Rob.
So would you recommend that people clean up some of their data? Our spreadsheet is a little bit messy right now. Would you recommend doing a cleanup before trying to do the import?
Absolutely. You want to, don't put junk in there just because you have it. Try to do some degree of cleanup. You also might want to reduce the set that you import. Import a few, take a look at it, make sure you're getting what you wanted, that it's working right, and that sort of thing will help you avoid having to go clean out the garage, so to speak, in 6 months' time. So the cleaner you can be going in, that's why doing a reduced set of attributes is also nice. You speed up your implementation, but you can be cleaner about it.
Okay, great. So let's fast forward, and let's say that I've now imported my inventory, but unfortunately, we really didn't have anything in our spreadsheet around assessing the value of each application. So I really don't have a good way of comparing similar applications in case we want to do some rationalization, investing in some, retiring others. So what can we do there?
So the next thing, we've got that inventory. We want to take advantage of the indicator and scoring framework. This is how we measure. And in fact, you want to improve anything. What do? You measure it. So APM comes with the indicator and scoring framework. It enables basic rationalization, especially in EA workspace. And we can define sets of metrics by which to evaluate our application inventory. It's incredibly flexible, and we have a lot of different customers working with it. In the beginning, we want to start simple, and what we're going to propose is that we do it with just a couple of simple indicators. But first, let's talk about how it works. So at the bottom, we have data sources. In the platform, we have the ability to do assessments. We also have operational data, all those tables, the incident, problem, change, discovery, IT asset management, HR, all of these tables. Any table in ServiceNow platform is available via probably scripts or performance analytics. Those data sources can be gathered into a defined set of metrics. We see indicator framework. The two we're going to talk about today are business value and technical risk, but we have others: number of incidents, number of change hours, total cost of ownership is a new one that's out now. So these individual metrics then are rolled up into a single score so that we can do a quick apples to apples comparison of our applications. And that score, each application has its own score using the framework. It also has all of the individual scores. They're just rolled up in a weighted manner. So the way that looks, next, please. First, we want to overview. Here's some definitions. Application scores can be calculated by all sorts of means. We have actually 5 different ways. Indicators are individual metrics. Data sources, again, that's what we use to populate it. How often? Some things don't make sense to do every month. So a quarterly basis or once a year are how we would do it. A score profile is a mechanism that combines multiple metrics weighted, taking a weighted sum. So each metric contributes their weight to the overall score. And out of the box, we have 12 indicators in APM. Next. So our data sources, assessments, very popular for that subjective point of view. And don't underestimate subjective evaluation. There's no way to understand customer sat, business value without doing some subjective measure. There are means by which you can improve your results on subjective, but it is very valuable. And in fact, that's where we like to start. Performance analytics, again, that's a huge and powerful way to gather metrics of all sorts, especially from, for example, IT service management, instant change problems. Custom scripts, that allows us to do just about anything reasonably within the platform. You go find per application, you go look at something, whatever it is, gather a value and say that's the value for this metric. And so it's, again, very powerful. Query condition is simply looking at an attribute on the business application or business capability. Both of those can be measured with this framework, but it's a way to look at it. And then finally, indicators, we can do a single layer hierarchy. In other words, we can take a set of base indicators and create a parent indicator that sums or averages their values and becomes a higher order meaning metric. Next. So we see how these things can be put together. You can define profiles. Your default profile, it may not apply to cloud applications, for example. So you can create appropriate profiles to convey and control how you do your scoring. The indicators are just the individual metrics. You just put them in there and you give them a weight. How much does it affect? You could make them all evenly matched, or you could make them where some are weighted heavier than others. Just depends upon what you're trying to do. But the point is you can create that apples to apples comparison. And next. So what we want to show you is a quick summary video on how to set up the business value technical risk assessments, run them, and get some scores. The out-of-the-box assessments, they are, yeah, go ahead, Rob. So the out-of-the-box assessments have one question on them. and it doesn't do much. It's meant to be configured. On your toolkit, you'll find a paper up there that gives you some suggestions for questions to ask for business value and technical risk. So we're going to demonstrate how you can update those assessments. Again, you're going to want to do this as an admin. You can do it as APM analyst, but life honestly is easier if you're doing it as an admin or as a application developer. Um, as always, work with your admins. So here we're going to the out of the box business value indicator. We see it kind of there in the middle. And when we look at that indicator, we'll see that it has two values that are important. First, the metric type, that's the assessment. And then there's a category. Indicators in APM are tied to a metric category. So you could have one assessment that assesses all multiple categories, and you have an indicator for each category. So you could run one assessment. That's an advanced topic that we'll cover at some other time. Here we're looking at the business value metric category, and here's our list of assessments and indicators. And so we're going to add a couple of questions here. We already have two questions. One's been added previously. We're going to show you how to add a new one. Pretty straightforward. You put in your question, give it a name. And here I'm just using the question as the name. Order, that controls where it shows up when somebody looks at the assessment. So we want this one to be third. You can mark it as mandatory. And this one, we want to have a net promoter score. We're using the NPS template. It'll say, it's basically a rating from 1 to 10. And we want a numeric value for these. We always want numerics. Text can't be counted, if you will. So we want numeric evaluation in these indicators. So once we update that, we can go back to the indicator and we can literally generate the assessments. Now, in this example, we're going to use the generate assessments from the indicator record. We're going to limit who we send it to. In this case, we're just going to send it to one IT owner. We want to make sure this thing is working and looks correct. So we can preview, make sure that we've got some records. And in this case, we want the assessment to go to a particular user indicated on the application record. The other alternative is you can pick a group and pick people out of a group. So now we've sent the assessments to Able Tutor. We're going to impersonate Able. And this is going to let us to go in and we'll take the assessment. So under self-service, and it may have been moved by your admins. Again, work with your admins to know where this is. We see we have our assessment and we see our questions. Able had 4 applications, so we're going to evaluate each application. And once we've done that, we have the data source. Remember, the assessment is a data source. Its values just sit out there. Now, what we have to do is we're going to go back to the indicator and we're going to run the indicator to take those assessment scores and create indicator scores. So we went back to admin, we go to application indicators, and here I'm doing it from the profile. This makes it really convenient. It's going to try to update the values for all of these indicators. But it's a convenient way to do it. You can also do it from the individual indicator. So I give it a physical period. You know, this was a couple of years ago, back in 22 when we ran this video. But now we've generated our scores. And what we're going to go look for is business value for those 4 applications. And remember, ServiceNow APM was one of them. And we want to see what we got. There's ServiceNow APM. We got a 9.1 out of it, a normalized value. The way the indicators work is it takes the best value and the worst value, and then the current value of that app, and it generates that normalized value between 1 and 10 based on where you fall in that scale. So you see that we got some values generated. We now are set up. We've measured. We're now set up to evaluate it. So Rob, does that make sense? You know, now you're at a point you've got your inventory in, you know who owns it. You've got some rudimentary attributes of it. We've done some scoring of it. So you repeat all of that for technical risk as well, by the way. And so the summary of steps here is configure your questions for whatever business value, technical risk, or what we used here, but build new ones or modify the existing ones to suit your purpose. Generate the assessments, send them out. Remember, that's the data that we're going to draw from. One key point here, when you send out assessments, all of them must be complete. You must complete or cancel every single assessment before the indicator will pick up values from it. So that's one thing to remember. And then once all are assessed, are complete, generate your indicator scores, and you're in business. You're ready to go to that next level.
Okay, so would you recommend starting simply with the number of indicators? There were a lot that looked like they were available out of the box, but it seemed like maybe you wanted to focus on just a few of them just when we're starting APM. Is that correct?
Exactly. You want to establish the process of it and get everybody used to participating, but start with a few, continuously improve.
All right, and I'll definitely be taking advantage of that toolkit as we build out our indicators. All
Perfect.
right, so now that we have our indicators, I'm going to try to do a little bit of rationalization in our enterprise architecture workspace.
Yeah. This is where you reap your benefit.
Yep. So Mark mentioned that this is relatively new. As someone who's also worked with the old application portfolio management home screen, really this is a huge step forward as far as providing a single workspace for enterprise architects. And there are many things that as an enterprise architect you can do with this workspace. So you can view reports on a dashboard regarding all of your business applications that you've loaded into your inventory. You can get insights into some of the actions that you might want to take on your business applications and technology. And you can also see a timeline of lifecycle information around your apps and that related technology. Now, some of these features will provide more value as an APM implementation matures. But in this MVP scenario, I'm already able to take a look at the rationalization opportunities for my applications. So here's a screenshot of the bubble chart where we can basically chart things from the metrics that we're receiving from our assessments on a X and Y axis, and then we also can set a bubble size. And so I am going to go through and actually run a video that showed my attempts to rationalize some of the apps within my environment. All right, what we're going to demonstrate is how to do application rationalization in ServiceNow Application Portfolio Management using the Enterprise Architecture Workspace. So I'm going to go into my Enterprise Architecture Workspace, which is my single workspace for getting all the work done I need to do as an enterprise architect. And we're going to choose our application rationalization option. All right, so here is a current bubble chart of all of my applications within my environment. And it's a little bit busy here. So first, a couple things I want to do. I want to make sure my fiscal period is correct. So I've chosen FY24 as my fiscal period. Next, I need to filter this down a little bit so I can actually get a better understanding of applications that are serving a similar purpose that I may want to rationalize. I have a few different options of how to do this. I can filter on my application category. I can use my application family. I can use business capability to identify applications that are providing the same business capabilities. or I can filter just on the plan disposition, and that is sustain, invest, migrate, retire, or not defined. So what I'm going to do is I want to filter on my application category and just look for applications that are customer support applications. All right, so that is decrease the number of bubbles. Now, currently, I'm using the functional fit versus the business value as the metrics that I'm looking at that will determine where these bubbles sit on the bubble chart. I do want to change that. So I'm going to go into our settings, and I want to use the technical risk score versus the business value score that we've seen in a previous demo on how to score applications. So I'm going to select that. Right now, my bubble size is CSAT. I'll leave it that way, and I'm going to choose apply. All right, so now I've got 4 applications that are customer support applications. I've got my ServiceNow customer service, which has a fairly high CSAT, and we've chosen to invest in that. We've got a CRM application here. It's kind of in the middle. We're going to choose to just sustain that for now, so that's showing up in blue. All right, so then we want to look at the GlideSoft customer support app. It does not currently have a disposition, so we haven't determined what we want to do with this application. So for now, I think I just want to sustain it because we need to do potentially some additional analysis to determine if we can get rid of it. So let's set the plan disposition and just say we're going to sustain, click on update, and we can see the color is now blue for that particular business application. Now then I have an application here in the lower left quadrant, which typically we would suggest that these applications be retired. So currently, if we look at the plan disposition, it's currently set to sustain. Let's say we actually want to retire this particular application. And I can put in a reason, which is no longer used. We can update. All right. So now I've identified that I want to retire this application, but how can I actually make sure that something is done, that application is actually retired? So this has, in this try menu, we can choose create demand, which will create a work in our strategic portfolio management application to actually kick off the work. So what we want to do is we want to retire this application. Okay, so retiring. And we can choose a start date and a due date. So let's say we want to try to do this starting in April and have it done by the end of April. And it will automatically identify the impacted business application that we're going to be retiring. So I'll create that demand. And so now, using this bubble chart, we've been able to set our disposition for the different applications that are within this particular application category. And we've triggered an action to retire the applications that show up in the lower left quadrant and may not be needed. We can also see these items from a list view. If we click on the list, here are different business applications, the different columns. We could drill into one of these if we want to see more information about that particular application. And if we click on the little arrow next to it, we can see any of the current work that has been proposed for that particular application. All right, so those demands have basically gone into a backlog. That's not a guarantee that the work is going to be done, but at least it is now kind of on our backlog radar of what we may want to do with our business applications. We also, with this view, you can see potentially multiple demands. If we have work that may have been intended, but then we're going to retire the application, we may then want to basically cancel that other demand or determine if it's actually necessary. All right, so now I can rationalize my inventory based on my product category, but that field is somewhat limited. So Mark, I've got a question. Is there a better way to identify the business capabilities my applications are supporting?
Absolutely. And that's our next topic. We've mentioned it a couple of times. We want to understand how our applications are supporting the business. So enterprise architecture workspace, for a long time, we've had business capabilities. EA workspace makes it so much easier to manage our capabilities. Now, capability has a particular definition. It's the ability of an organization to do its business activities successfully and fulfill its goals. It's what your company does. Business capability mapping, we use configuration items, CMDB relationships, a particular sort called provides, provided by, actually provided by, provides. The capability is the parent, the application is the child, and that's how we connect them to say this application is providing or helping support that capability. So if you don't know where to start, for many, many years now, been recommending that people go take a look at APQC. It's a organization out there that has defined industry-specific process models, but the top three levels of their process capability framework make excellent capabilities. And so level one, level two, three, you see capability, sub-capability, sub-capability. And you see how it might break down. At the top level, we have develop vision and strategy, develop and manage products and services. A lot of these capabilities are generic and applicable across all industries, all people, all companies. But they have particular industry specific ones for medical, for financial services, et cetera. And so we recommend go take a look. It's a great place to get a start. You don't have to use all of it. You can take what you need. If nothing else, it'll give you an idea. So in EA Workspace, you go to EA Workspace, you go to the business portfolio section, you see it there on the left hand, and we see our capability hierarchy. Up to 6 levels, we can expand and collapse, and we see the applications associated to those capabilities, the aligned application. We see the scoring. Capabilities are traditionally scored on a people, process, and technology metrics. Those metrics, just like with our applications, roll up to an overall score. And the thing that we show here is we show the overall score for everything because apps and capabilities have overall scores. The capabilities themselves, particularly the leaf level capabilities, will have the people, process, and technology. In the submenu, we have some great functionality. Create a sub capability. This used to be a 20-click nightmare to create a sub capability. Now you can do it in just one click, nice little dialogue, and it does it. It creates the capability, makes it the child of the one that you're clicking on, and associates it. You don't have to go through a bunch of forms. You do it in one single thing. Assign a business application, another thing that was a nightmare. This will do it. It will create the proper CSDM relationship for you. You no longer have to worry about data problems because somebody picked the wrong relationship type. We can take action, we can create a demand, and then finally we can view the roadmap. If you have SPM license, Strategic Portfolio Management, and have installed strategic planning, you can see a roadmap for the capabilities and the applications on this page. So we're going to do a little quick demonstration of using capabilities in EA Workspace. So start off in EA Workspace, click Business Portfolio, third icon down, and you see the layout here. You see the hierarchy. You can expand it, contract it, and you see associated applications at each level, and you see our scoring, overall scoring, as well as people, process, and technologies. You see there's a couple of ways that we can manage the hierarchies and create new capabilities. The right click is the way that we prefer here. And in this case, we're going to create a demand. You notice that it picked up the application and we picked up the capability and we created demand so that we can start to do something. In this demo, I have SPW. So now I can go examine the roadmap of work that is ongoing for this capability. So there you go, Rob. You can use, you have your business alignment. Again, I want to emphasize, use demands in APM to take action. This is where you build your business case. And then finally, if you have um, SPW, this is where you can view your roadmap. Um, there's also linkage in EA Workspace, so it'll show you your demands if you don't have SPW. But this is a nice view. You want to see and understand how things stack up, what's going on.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Mark. I feel like now we have a great start for my APM journey.
I
Um,
think so too.
yeah. So let's say I've gotten through these initial parts of the journey. I've gotten started. Would you say are my next steps in maturing APM?
So we want to look at maturing. As we mentioned in the beginning, there's lots and lots to APM, and guess what? It continues to grow, especially in the enterprise architecture role, which, by the way, the EA, the role of the EA, APM is a tool for the EA. In some companies, and it does depend upon your company, EA's own application portfolio management, and they're the ones responsible. But to be very pedantic about it, it's a separate role. Your application portfolio management admins are providing a tool for EAs to go do their job, because EA's job is be the liaison between business and IT and technology. So that application portfolio is a huge and valuable tool, but it's not the end all. So some companies, the EAs do own APM, but at least half the companies I see, they're a separate organization. They only want to utilize APM. So you think of it in your mind as you have APM, and then you have your EAs. They work together, they collaborate, because there's a lot of functionality by which they do want to collaborate, but it is a separate function. So in maturing APM, one of the first things I want to point out, there's a guided setup. So you don't have to use this, but this gives you quick access to all kinds of things, the application portfolio, the business portfolio. You can set up your jobs for the indicators. You can populate things. Some of the reporting, there's so many functionality. No way we could cover it all today, but all of your setup can be covered here. And this is a great place to go to understand more of what's out there in APM and manage it and run it. This is for your APM admins. So next, what we want to do, and the way we speak of it, we have crawl, walk, run models. We also have the fitness model. This is the official maturity model for APM. So at your first level of maturity, it's basic application inventory. You get that inventory in. Guess what? We did that today. So you're level one already. Next, consolidate the inventory into one place. We've done that also today. So, Rob, you're at level two already. This is pretty cool. Align it to the business. We've talked about that today. So now you're at level three just by following the recommendations of what we're doing today. Next is you begin rationalization and you continuously improve your inventory, more attributes that have meaning, and those attributes become levers, they become measures for rationalization and management and providing general usage to enterprise architecture, operations, the business, finance, SecOps, all of them have involvement. They have a piece. This is such a valuable inventory. And then finally, top level integration of technology, understand top to bottom, from the business all the way to the plug in the wall. What are these applications doing? Who owns them? How do they work? Where do they have issues? Measure them, manage them, and improve your overall operational. You're managing the forest from the forest, not from the trees, not bottom up. That's key. The next is here's a set of metrics and KPIs and critical success factors. Just something, I don't want to read all of these, but it's some things to think about as you take this on. These are things by which you might measure your program. The next, This is purely an example of a roadmap that you might set up. Notice it's multi-phase. So in each phase, we're going to do certain things. First, obviously, establish that inventory. Sometime late phase one, phase two, we align the capabilities to the application. CSDM alignment begins immediately as best you can. Again, you got to work with the ITOM discovery and your admins to do this, but get started early with it. Assessing the application. Again, we talked about that today and getting started. And then next, we have other functionality. Alignment to ITSM. That's a phase two, phase three sort of thing. Technology alignment can take quite a while, has a lot of dependencies, super powerful. Keep your eye out for future workshops this year. We also had some that we did last year on TPM and TRM, technology reference model and technology portfolio management. We've put a lot of information out there on these. TCO, this is some new functionality, and we can integrate with third-party products like Aptio, Nicus, and Proven Optics to gather those costs and roll it up to your business application so you can use costing as a part of your evaluation. It's pretty critical. You can manage your digital interfaces and integrations. This is API management. And then finally, manage your enterprise artifacts, modeling, these sort of things. You're going to see a lot happening in this area this year. So take this as an example, but build your personal roadmap. This is just like anything else. Establish your objectives, define your key results, and move forward. Continuous improvement.
All right. And my company actually owns strategic portfolio management as well. So we might just build this roadmap out in SBW. All right. So Mark, you want to just talk a little bit about the toolkit?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, we created a toolkit. It's been out there for a while. We're going to make some improvements this year. APM continues to grow. Our toolkit needs to grow. So keep an eye on it. This is where you can go and find material that is absolutely related, templates, step-by-step guides for doing the assessments. All of that is published up there or linked in articles to help you get your APM started.
All right, fantastic. A couple more slides before we get to Q&A. First, we ask that you join our evangelist program. This will provide you opportunities for personal and professional growth with application portfolio management. So just scan this QR code that's on your screen to go ahead and get started. I think that will probably also be linked in the chat. Give people a couple seconds if they want to scan the QR code now. And then we wanted to identify that you could have a skilled team that could help you achieve your business goals faster. So you can review our technical training guide linked on this page to see how you can use the learning credits in Now Learning to upskill your team and accelerate learning with on-demand courses, live classes, hands-on labs, and certifications. And you can boost adoption and get more value from your implementation with custom training and adoption. And then we also have expert services that can give your ServiceNow implementation leading practices to accelerate time to value while reducing risk. We can either lead your implementation or collaborate with your implementation partner in a co-delivery engagement to boost your implementation success. So there's a link on here of getting to our expert services community to see how you can help set up your implementation path for long-term success with expert services. All right. If not, I think we can close out. Thanks very much, Mark, for all of your insight on ServiceNow APM. Now, I guess, does that survey automatically pop up for the closeout survey,
I
Sharon?
think it comes out in an email, but I was going to say,
perfect.
check out that Start Your Toolkit on Community. Ask your questions there. That way, everybody benefits from your questions. Rob and I are going to monitor it, and we'll get back to you and watch for improvements in our future workshops. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks very much to all the participants. Again, please answer that survey when you get it, if you can, and have a great day.
Cheers.